Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bitch Up After Dark.
Welcome back, guys. Happy whatever day you're finding us on.
For real. I'm like, I don't know what day it is. I've lost all track of time. That's how I've been feeling this week. But she's thriving as best as she possibly can. So I think that's my bitch up moment is that I am surviving. I literally woke up this morning. I woke up completely lost of like I had no idea what day it was. I'm like, is it Friday already? Or is it the
Mhm.
weekend? I can I sleep in? And then I was like, no, I can't. I have meetings to attend. But it was a chill day. But I would say my bitch up moment is that I made it through the day and I got all the things that I wanted to do done. I obviously got through work. I was able to get my run in today and then go pick up some things
Yay.
that I wanted to go pick up today. And she accomplished everything and got back just in time to record this. And yeah, your girl has been packing. I don't know if we've mentioned it in other episodes, but I am going on a trip to Italy and I am leaving this week or technically next week. But when this episode goes up, I will be in Spain. In Spain, I will be in Italy.
I
I'm
honestly
telling
just see your
you,
little neurons
my
just
little
struggling to get all your thoughts out because
yeah,
I just feel like so many things are rushing through your head, things that you haven't done, things that you did, things that you still need to do.
things that I
And
still need to get. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm telling you, my little neurons are barely sparking. But yeah, so that's my pitch up moment, guys. So, anyways, going back to that,
she's getting her
because
checklist done.
yeah, because I'm going to be in Italy, there won't be a episode next week after this one, right? Um, because I won't be here to record. So we will be having a bypass
Yes.
week. Just so you guys are aware, just wanted to make sure that you guys knew what the agenda was and, get some things off of our checklist.
Yeah, we're just taking care of some housekeeping items.
Yeah,
Lucy's going to be
exactly.
summering in Italy and living her best life. So we are going to take a bye week and
Yeah.
I'm going to be resting.
You're like, I'm going to be so excited to not have this bitch in my ear and just like,
No.
frolicking around.
No, I mean, I'm going to be excited to know that you're out there living your best life and, just kind of living, what is it? La Dolce Vita.
What do you have a bitch up?
Yes. So
Yeah. I
my
was like,
bitch moment. So my bitchin' moment this week is that your girl has been saving. So that there was something that I needed to save for very quickly. One might say an emergency situation. I'm saying that my bitchin' moment is that I was able to get my affairs in order and be able to save the money that I needed to take care of that
nice.
emergency fund. So I think my bitch moment there is one that I was able to like tighten myself up in terms of budget to make sure that I was able to meet those tight deadlines with the money that I needed to save and that
Hmm.
I was still able to like pay whatever bills I had to take care of and things like that. So my bitch moment there is that I saved up money in a short period of time. I didn't think it could be done because
She was balling on a budget and she made it happen.
yeah. Yeah. And it kind of just proved, like, I guess it was one of those things where I was like, I should probably be more diligent. It was one of those, it's been one of those things where it's kind of shown me that I should be more mindful with my spending. And even though I thought I was being mindful and I thought I was laying off debts and things like that, I've learned that I could do more. So, yeah. And then now that that's over with, I have like something else to take care of. So, it's my next goal, I guess. But yeah, my bitch up moment is that I was able to meet the tight deadline and get what I needed to get saved up, and I'm still staying on top of my bills. So, yeah, that's what it
Yay.
is.
That's so fun. Actually, I noticed the same thing because I was talking to my mom about how much cash we were going to carry. And so I was looking at my bank account and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, I have this much. Your girl really put in work to save up this money. I'm over here
Nice.
like, great, I'm struggling, but the bank is good. So I'm like, okay, I will have something left over when I come back to hold me over
Holds you over
until,
into.
you know.
Yeah,
But
that's
yay,
good.
we're bitching up and budgeting, baby. And, we couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this week we decided to tap
Talk
in.
more shit.
Speaking of budget, and speaking of things that usually tend to tap into our budget. So I love to pull up like random things to my friends and be like, oh my God, we should go to this. It looks like so much fun. And one of those things was that the Pussycat Dolls were supposed to be touring. Right. And I was like, I want to go see the Pussycat Dolls. I love the Pussycat Dolls. And when else am I going to be able to see them again? Right. Because these
Right.
bitches stay breaking up. Right. So
Yeah.
I was like, Shelly, here's my proposal. Let's go watch the Pussycat Dolls in San Diego. Of course, that didn't happen because they ended up canceling their tour in the US because tickets were not selling, baby. So we are not going after all. But this kind of brought upon the conversation of all these artists have been touring. I'm sure everybody's noticed. Everybody's just dropping a tour, literally drop an album 2 weeks later, or like, hey, the album's coming. By the way, we're touring. And next week the tour dates drop and then tickets are available. And it's like, whoa. So quick. I'm like, I didn't even get a chance to get my queens together.
Yeah,
So we
like I
figured that
haven't
we would
even
talk about it.
recovered from
Yeah.
the past from the last concert.
What was the last concert that we
I
went
haven't
to?
even recovered from Coachella. Arguably, Coachella is the last concert we went to. And I think before that, at least you and I, was the Monica and Brandy concert, I want to say. I know
Yeah,
you've
I
been
think.
to concerts. What did you do recently? I know you had done Addison Rae
Well, but
and
yeah, that was last year though.
Kanye. Oh, that was that long
Oh,
ago?
Kanye was the
Kanye
most
was.
recent one. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, we figured we'd talk about it. Why are artists, touring so much? Why is everybody dropping a tour? But why are they also canceling these like massive tours that they've put out in the world?
So we put on our detective hats. No, I'm kidding. and we realized it's a recession indicator.
Literally, literally it is. I mean, with everything going on right now, obviously there's like a major affordability crisis because those tickets are freaking insane, okay? And then
Yeah.
you have to take into account the high parking fees too, any food, drinks, your outfits, those stupid service charges that they add on at the end once you're like trying to pay your tickets, that like,
Even though you're getting them electronically delivered to you, so you're not even paying like that it's a paper.
yeah.
Like shout out to
Well, I'm
when they used
assuming
to
it
print
goes.
tickets and mail them to you.
Yeah.
The good
I'm
old
assuming
days.
it goes to the venue and whatnot and like all that stuff. But even then, it's crazy. I mean, going to a concert has literally become
It's such a privilege these days, I
a
feel.
luxury, right?
Yeah.
In itself, it's kind of also being sold as a luxury because even these legacy artists that you may never see again, it's like, hey, come see my concert because you may never see it. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And you should be so lucky to even come watch me. I mean, not that they're saying that, but it's kind of, that's how they're selling it.
You have a lot of like OG artists or people that have been in the game for a while that are kind of also putting on tours, like as in their sort of version of an Eras tour, like Taylor Swift, or they're doing like their last tour. I know a lot of reggaeton artists are doing that, like OG ones at least. But y'all are still touring. Quit playing with us. That's messed up. But yeah, they play on this idea of now's your chance to see us. Do it now or forever hold your peace. Who knows when you'll be able to see them again. That's why we pulled the trigger. Because I know you wanted to see them, but for me, I was kind of like, oh, do I need to see them? But this could be fun, and down to San Diego, and it could be a fun experience for us. And just going with you, I was sold on that experience. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. It'll be fun. And then, life had other plans for us. Yeah. God was like, Lucy needs these monies for her Italy trip. Let's just refund her.
I do think that artists, especially legacy artists, have definitely been playing on this whole nostalgia aspect now. Because when they initially came out, right, when these artists that we watched growing up, and we were kids and we didn't have adult money, we didn't have concert money, and now we do.
Yeah.
Kinda, not really, But
now we have money and free will. So it's sort of like, pay your rent or get these tickets. I'm going to get these tickets and figure out rent later. Pay your phone bill or secure these tickets. I'm going to get these tickets. And then, Dios proveerá. And he always does.
Yeah. But then when you have so many tours with all of these artists and obviously very little money to spend on all of these
Yeah.
concerts, people have to be very selective as to what concerts they are attending. And like you said, if I'm going to go to a concert, it's usually going to be a once in a lifetime situation, right? When else am I going to get the opportunity to see this person? So therefore, I will select, going to see Beyonce over like maybe Megan Trainor, something like
Yeah.
that. But then I was thinking about, how you said, obviously, that the fact that artists are going on tours right now is a recession indicator. And I was like, obviously, they're struggling too, because
Yeah.
clearly, us peasants are not the only ones suffering the cost of living. The fact that all of these artists are touring is a sign that it's also getting hard for them to sustain their lifestyles and they have to get up and work. Okay. They have to get off your ass and work. Nobody
Well,
wants to
yes.
work these
I mean,
days.
that's what I said when I saw Harry Styles going on tour. I'm like, oh my god, and his ticket prices. I was like, oh my god, babes, are we okay? Like, what's going on with your
Yeah.
bag? It's interesting because even to the point where we talk about how expensive ticket prices are, I do think that it's a whole method to the madness of what goes into ticket prices. To your point, the venue takes a cut of it. It's not all just money going to them.
Yeah.
um it's not like they're profiting completely. Then you have the people that do like the ticket scalpers, so they buy them at a face value and then they turn it up for profit, and the artist is not making any money off of that.
Yeah. And especially with the streaming or the way that music works now with streaming, it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
a lot harder. And I think we had discussed this prior, where it's a lot harder for artists to make money. And the only real way they can make money nowadays, and even back then, was touring and merch. But aside from the venue taking their cut, they also have to take into account that they're traveling to different areas. So whether it's hopping on a plane or hopping on a tour bus, gas prices are up there, right? So
Yeah.
tour buses are definitely cutting into that budget nowadays, right? And then you
Yeah.
also have to increase crew wages because you better be paying those people, right? Because they're
Yeah.
doing all the hard work, all the heavy lifting, making sure that all the lighting's good, that the stage setup is good,
Yeah, it's a whole
everything is
production.
managed. Exactly. So in that sense, I can see why these ticket prices are so freaking high. I think artists are like praying that those, high price tickets are being sold so they can even afford to tour. Basically, that's how bad it is. And that's why we're getting all these people canceling tours, because they're like, their tickets are not selling, so we have to cancel.
I feel like I felt that around 2019, like right before COVID hit, where you had a couple artists that were touring or had announced tours and ended up canceling them. I remember T-Pain was one of them because I was so sad because I was like, this is my moment. But it's fine
Yeah.
because I was able to redeem myself at Lovers and Friends. And then I forgot what other artists in 19 were also queued up for tours, and then they ended up canceling because they just weren't selling. Their tickets weren't selling. I feel like I have been very blessed to have been able to experience a lot of concerts in my adult life and when I've had an adult money and such. And I
Mhm.
do feel like in recent years I have had to shift in terms of how I prioritize going to concerts, and those experiences are like so fun, but I'm also kind of a little bit more judicious about it now than I was back then, because I feel like there was a moment where I felt there was such an oversaturation of people having concerts that I was kind of like, oh, I don't need to see that person. I'll catch
Mhm.
them in their next one. But I feel like now in recent years, it feels like the sentiment has kind of turned more of, like you said, like, when else am I going to see these people? So like, let me see them now, because who knows what's going to happen. And it also just depends whether it's a legacy artist or someone that's newer and on and popping right now too.
Well, for me, I think it's more so I do base it off of when else am I going to see it, but I also base it on how good the music is, also like the
Mhm.
album. Like if it's an
Yeah.
album that I really really like, and it might be their best album they probably will ever do, who knows, then I would want to go see that
Yeah, you would
concert.
want to see them
And
in that era.
especially
Hmm.
right now that people are like really playing off of nostalgia and dipping back into their old music and music that we grew up with, I would definitely want to go see it, because then they're more bound to play old music. And it's like, yeah, I want to go see them, because obviously when they drop new albums, they kind of have to focus on that. But now, because of the whole nostalgia thing and the whole era's impact, it's like, yeah, we're going to play a new album, but we're also going to bring back a lot of old music that you guys enjoyed and really weave it into this new album. I
The
think more
production, yeah.
recently I've noticed a lot of artists tap back into some of the old music that they were doing and injecting some of that old creativity into their new music. I think I noticed that a lot with like Lady Gaga's Mayhem, because some of her
Mm-hmm.
music did sound like sisters or cousins to old songs, and you can tell based off of, like, as a DJ, me, as I think as someone who listens to a lot of music, oh, this sounds a lot like this her song, and I could see on tour how they would remix this
Mm-hmm.
into, each other, so that, they build their playlist for the concert. So I think a lot of artists have been doing that a lot lately too, which adds to the whole nostalgia aspect, and it makes people enjoy the albums a little more, because I do think nowadays people are very critical of the albums that people put out, and artists put out, because they're like, oh, this is not like their old music. I miss their old music. It used to be so good, and now it's like they're trying to keep up with the times, or it's too generic, or this would just be played at H&M or what used to be Forever 20. Like, they're just trying
That's
to
funny.
hit the charts, and there's nothing to that, which there is some valid points. Again, streaming has made a huge impact in the music industry in the way
Yeah.
that albums are rolled out, or even just music in general. I recall in an interview that Beyonce mentioned how a lot of artists are not doing cohesive albums anymore, and they're just
Yeah.
dropping singles to hopefully hit the charts, and they sometimes end up making an album with all the singles that they dropped, but there's like no cohesive narrative. I think Selena Gomez is one of those artists that pops into my mind when it comes to just singles being dropped, but there was never really a cohesive album. And at a time where there was somewhat of a cohesive narrative happening, she never dropped the album and never came to be. And I think this was with her Bad Liar, Wolves, what other one? You gotta for my love. I forgot. Yeah, I think it is something like that. But they call it her droplet era, because she would just like have little
Sprinkle
singles
things.
here and there,
Yeah.
and an album never came. So yeah, I think artists have
I
had to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think you made a valid point there. How there might be an impact from the way music is released now and the way it's being streamed as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
before and the way it was consumed before. I mean, like you said, people aren't putting cohesive albums together. It's giving more like a playlist that they're putting together and seeing what
Yeah.
sticks. It's not necessarily a body of work or something that has some sort of narrative. And I think that's why Beyonce's recent works, I mean, all of her works, right? But
Yeah.
more recently, her Renaissance or Cowboy Carter have been so successful because she put in the work and the time to really produce a body of work,
Yeah.
and there was a story to it and everything goes with each other.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's cohesive, right? Which makes me think a little bit about Drake's recent drop, where some people argue it feels like he just dropped a bunch of playlists, like Y3 records, and it was just very interesting. I personally haven't listened to all the songs yet. Like, I try to get through all the albums, but I've listened to all the albums, so I just haven't listened to all the songs and all the albums.
Same. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm still digesting the music,
Mm.
but I've seen some interesting criticisms on that. And when you look at some of his older work, like when he did, what is his first album, where that definitely was more of a body of work versus obviously more recently. But then who knows, because I do like Drake, but I don't know the ins and out of his music, and I followed his music, but not like as a, what is his fandom called? Do you know what his fandom
No
is called?
idea.
Does he even have a fandom? No, I'm kidding.
I don't know. Dude, rappers have fandoms? I
That's
mean, I
like
know girl
interesting.
rappers do, but I don't know about
Yeah.
like the guy rappers. I know probably
Wait, that's an
Travis Scott
interesting take.
does. And I always assume Travis Scott does, right?
Well, yeah, because even when I was talking to my boyfriend about this past weekend of just Drake's album and his career and stuff, and though there was a time where I'm just like, oh yeah, I forget, I know so much about Drake, this and that. And not necessarily saying like, oh, you're a Drake fan, but I was just saying, like, you know so much about his music. And he's like, oh, well, I don't know that much. Kind of trying to distance himself from the narrative that he's a fan of Drake like that. And I'm just like, you listen to his music, you naturally know all these things about him. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, I didn't mean to insult you.
Well, I can get that because, for instance, I know a lot about Taylor Swift because a lot of stuff comes across my desk, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan of hers, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a fan of her, but I do enjoy some of her music, but I'm not a Swiftie, right? Oh, I think it's Team Drizzy is his fandom.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, Team
So
Drizzy.
the Drizzy, Team
I thought
Drizzy.
it was OVO or something because like I
Well, that's
remember.
his brand, yeah. But I think
Oh,
Team
okay. See,
Drizzy is
that's
like
why.
his fandom name. But yeah, I think you hit a good point on the whole playlist aspect of it because I was going through the albums that Drake dropped, and definitely they all have different vibes. I think
Hmm.
Maid of Honor is very much devoted to all his female fans, that have stayed by him. Yeah, he's like, "This is for my girls. Thank you for sticking by me. I'm gonna give you some music to like fall in love to, talk to your
Have a
man
fun
to."
summer. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. And then I think Habidi, I don't know how I would identify Habidi. I think Habidi is more, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I apologize if I'm not. But I think it's definitely more of like, vibes, very in the middle, right? He's talking shit, but also we're here for a good time. And Iceman is more, is Iceman or is Habidi after? I forgot the order of
I
which
think
one's
it's
which.
Iceman, Habidi, and the Maid of Honor. I
Okay.
think
And then Iceman is obviously him talking shit also. I forget which one. Yeah.
he's like speaking on everything that everybody was like waiting for him to speak on because of the beef and everything and the aftermath of it. You know what I thought was interesting? Someone people were talking about why
Mhm.
three? Like why are we releasing three albums? Why can't it just be one? Why can't you just narrow the playlist? And then I was like, is he just trying to flood the streaming services so that whatever sticks sticks? Is he trying to overwhelm people? What is his approach? And then someone was talking about like they looked at it as in it's giving Holy Trinity. And I was laughing and dying because I was like, huh, you kind of have a point.
Holy
And
Trinity.
he's like, it's giving Holy Trinity because of the three, right? So then, and he said something as in like, Iceman is his death, the death of him, or something like that. Or and then
Mhm.
that's why it's addressing all the shit that happened. It's kind of like all the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I forgot what the second one was. And then the third one was not necessarily resurrection, but rebirth. And I was like, oh, that's interesting that they made that connection. And it could be far reaching. But I
Yeah.
thought it was funny that he was like, oh, it's giving this, like Spence's death, Habibi. I forgot what he said about Habibi. And then the third one was like his rebirth or resurrection. And then people were also talking about how his rollout of these is interesting because I guess, oh, it's interesting to see his approach to the release of it, him dropping three albums all at once and then just like letting people eat it up, and then also the videos. I think he also released a bunch of videos for these too, which
Yeah.
I was impressed about because I was like, wow, he's giving us like visuals with the work too. But it also just feels like all over the place and I'm just trying to catch up. I'm just like, it's very overwhelming. So it's like, it's like
Yeah.
he's trying to say something, but I don't get it.
I mean, I did see someone else analyze the albums as being more so this is who he used to be. I think Maid of Honor, this is how Drake started. I don't know if it was Habidi or Maid of Honor, but there's this one song where he's asking the girl, "What are we?" And I know you had mentioned, like, oh, someone's like, "You're a 40-year-old man. Why are you asking a woman, what are we? Like, aren't we past that?" But then she
Yeah.
analyzed it as this is who he used to be. This is what he went through, and then this is who he is now. This is how he's choosing to move forward. And I was like, oh, that's a good take too. But I do think the rollout, he had to do something different because a lot of these surprise drops have, especially the whole idea of a surprise drop has been there, done that. Speaking of Beyonce, she was one of those people, or was the artist who bypassed all of the traditional album rollouts by doing a surprise drop with her self-titled album Beyonce. And it rocked the industry because not only did she not have to do the traditional rollout of albums
In
where you
person.
have radio tours, press junkets, and then you have to carefully curate which singles are going to be the
You
face
drop.
of the
Yeah.
album, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she basically showed that if you're a big enough artist, you don't have to do all that.
Yeah.
And I can just drop an album and peace out and people will enjoy it. And then not only that, but she usually, I think back then, albums or new music was being dropped on Tuesdays, and then she dropped her album on a Friday, and then that's completely switched the way people were dropping music because now every Friday new music drops, and then it gives the listener an opportunity to go through the
Into the
weekend
weekend and
and
just
listen
like
to this music, go to the club, go drinking, see what people are feeling, right? So, yeah. Now
That's
we have,
very interesting. I didn't know that they used to release new music on Tuesdays, and it's all like,
yeah,
why
I was
Tuesday?
thinking of that. I'm like, that was a very random day to drop music on. It's weird because I'm thinking maybe if people have corporate jobs and they have the opportunity to sit down and listen to something, then maybe they would
But
pick
that's
someone,
just true.
assuming they have the opportunity to do that, right?
Or that, and also assuming that everybody works corporate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's very
yeah,
interesting. I can think of it though, removing the corporate part, a lot of people work, right? So whether people are listening through radios, through other media sources, I can now see what you meant in terms of they're going to work, it's coming out, like they're driving to work, they're driving from work, they're driving
yeah.
to the gym, or to, like, they're just living life listening to the music on the radio and it's
Listening to the
playing.
interviews, watching the
Mm-hmm.
late night shows of like, hey, I'm dropping an album. By the way, this is the new song performing on these late night shows, the
Oh
single that they
yeah, I
choose,
remember that.
right? I think nowadays some artists are kind of going back to a little bit of that traditional rollout because it's like you're not a big enough artist. And I think that's where some of these artists kind of fall. You're not a big enough artist to be able to do these type of drops where you don't promote your album, right?
Right.
And then, I mean, there's obviously the whole idea of even your record label also has to back you up. So I know some artists struggle with that because I think Lizzo had mentioned something where she's like, I have my album, I had a cohesive narrative for it, but my record label wanted to push me getting Good as Hell or getting a song similar to that. So it's very hard as an artist to branch out and do something different when your record label wants you in a box and to keep
Yeah.
repeating those numbers and keep doing the same thing. But then you have fans that are like, girl, we need something new. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did want to go back to that whole idea of when people drop albums, or Drake's album almost seemed like a playlist of a sort. And I think that was a very interesting point because nowadays, again, with the whole streaming situation, you also have like the algorithm to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Because people not are not only curating their playlist, but they're also technically curating their algorithm because what they see is what they continue to get on their algorithm. So if they see one Drake song on TikTok or listen to one clip on TikTok about the new song, they will eventually maybe get more Drake content, right? So
Yeah.
maybe him dropping 3 albums was like, here, and let's see what sticks and let's flood the algorithm so
Yeah.
that people don't skip one and then we get a better chance of getting on the charts, right? Because even then, I think also people's like low attention spans, if a song doesn't capture people within what 15 seconds,
People are
it's like
changing
a
it.
skip. So I have noticed that artists will put like their most catchy songs at the beginning of the album to work with the algorithm and then again avoid skips. I had to look back at Taylor Swift's drop of The Life of the Showgirl, and her first 3 songs are literally her most popular singles. I think
Mm.
it was Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, and Opalite, and those are literally the first 3. And then I went back to Drake's, I think it's Made of Honor, and he has Ho Phase on there. So if you want to capture people's attention, Ho Phase, which seems to be like a party anthem,
And it's pretty
especially in an
popular.
album
Yeah.
called Maid of Honor, it's like it's probably for the girls and it is popular, right? So I can see how that's working out. I think Harry Styles, I had to go back to his album too. I think it's Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally, or something like that. Aperture is the first song on his album, and that was his first single that he dropped. So I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's interesting. And I had to go back through, I think I went back to Bad Bunny's, Debí tirar más fotos, and I'm like, Nueva York is the first song, and that's one of the more popular ones also that kind of
Yeah.
gets the album going. And I think the first 2 songs are definitely something very catchy, and people, it just gets the people going, you know?
Exactly. It's provocative.
But going back to that whole people just playlist, I think Chris Brown is really a culprit of having a long ass list of songs, like an album that has maybe there's a narrative to it, but there's just a lot of songs on that album.
Mhm.
I think it was his 11/11 album, and he had 22 songs on that album alone, and people were like, "What the fuck?" I mean, looking back at it, I get why it was 22 songs because his album is 11/11. 11 plus 11 is 22, so I guess that makes sense. But then his deluxe album had 35 songs. And then people are like, now, sir, why
I
can't
mean,
you just.
I honestly felt that way with Cowboy Carter the first time I was tuning up for it. I was like, there's how many songs? But they're all
Wait, how many
great.
songs did Cowboy Carter have? I forgot.
She had a lot of songs on there, I want to say.
27
were
songs. Yeah.
But they were cohesive. So
Mhm.
like I listened
There
to
was
him
a
and what.
story.
Yeah, so and it worked, you know.
Yeah.
But like I remember the first time that I was like, okay, let me listen to this album. I was like, pardon me, 27 songs, but like to her credit, like all the songs are good, like no skips sort of thing. So it's just like
Mhm.
wow, to be able to put out an album like that, to reach the success that it have, for it to be cohesive and to really be a body of work, like you just don't see that a lot these days from
I mean,
artists.
I do think that she could kind of get away with it because she is touring that album, and
Mhm.
then her production is crazy. A lot of people have said if you are not putting a Beyonce type production, your ticket
Sit the
sales or
fuck
your ticket
down. I'm
prices
just
should
kidding.
not be that high. Unless you're
Nope,
putting
I agree.
Beyonce production, then I will understand the ticket prices. And I think that was like some of the call outs that people had with Harry's current tour. They're
I
like,
saw
where's the
that.
production? What the fuck is this? And I'm like, you know what? I get why people are upset. I didn't know what those tickets look like, to be quite honest. I didn't even
They
bother
were
to
wild.
try.
Yeah.
I think it's a little hard, again, being an artist because you're trying to do something different. I think I had seen that the way that his stage is set up, he was trying to give the pit people space so that they can, spread around and dance, which is a very unique idea. And I'm like, yes, I do think that if you're going to be in pit, there should be room for you to be able to dance because, that, especially for a album called Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally, like, yes. And obviously, Harry is starting to dance on this tour, and a lot of people were like, what the fuck is he doing? Why is he dancing? He sucks. And I'm like, for someone who says they want artists to try different things and do new things, y'all really
Yeah.
don't like it when artists step out of the comfort box.
No, I think there is an element too of like we were talking about how look, times are tough. Money is spread very thin. If I am putting all my nickels and dimes together to afford or putting my shit on Klarna or whatever, if I'm putting my life on the line literally to buy these tickets, I expect a little bit more from production, you know? So like I get partially the criticism and or the public's, dare I say, outrage with
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the part where like, look, this is a privilege for me. This is a luxury that I'm, kind of partaking in because I really like this artist, because I like his music. And then to go there and feel underwhelmed by the production and by the delivery of the concert, like I get the gripes, I get the grievances, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that, yeah, artists are trying to get creative. Artists are trying to like express themselves. And sometimes, unfortunately, the idea is not as well executed. And this is why you end up with the idea of wanting to give people open space to dance is amazing. But if I can't view the show from where I paid thousands of dollars to see you, what the hell? And mind you, the production is not to the point where you feel the experience where it doesn't even matter that I can't see you. I'm still in the motherfucking house. I can feel the vibes, whatever, and it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like it wasn't delivering that. And that's why people were
Yeah.
kind of like, are you fucking serious? I will say that I went to a One Direction concert way back in 2014, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so much fun. It was so amazing. I had so, like, no notes. And I've seen Harry Styles perform live at Coachella a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
too. I had a great time at the show, too. But
Yeah.
obviously, it was Coachella. It was one stage. It's different than when he's actually doing a whole tour. I've never been to his tour specifically. So
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, that sucks that people went to see him, paid all this money, diehard fans, and were underwhelmed with the production or just the experience. It sucks because then you just feel like your money went to waste.
Yeah, and I think this is also going back to like the whole Justin Bieber Coachella performance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
About how people felt gypped, that there was no production. It was just him singing. It was a very stripped down show, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I was really thinking about in the place where we are now, where it's really hard for people to afford these type of entertainment or this type of entertainment, and artists themselves are having a hard time keeping up with the production of things. And again, pendulum swings, we've gone from a time where artistry was very much about the talent, right? You had to have a good voice to be an artist, to be considered a legend, right? There was just certain talents that you had to have as an artist. Nowadays, it's like anything really goes as long as you have a good fandom behind you and people that will, support you. You're pretty much, you can get away with certain things. You don't necessarily have to be a good singer. You don't necessarily have to be a good dancer. As long as you can hone into like one specific talent, you're good. As long as you give a show and you're performing, and if you have high production and that gets you through, that's cool. So then we're in this pendulum scene where everything's so much so extra and people are trying to catch up with certain artists that are putting, all the stops. So now where do we go from there with the economy that we're in? And looking at Justin Bieber's performance, where I would say he was a high production, high entertainment artist,
Mm-hmm.
doing stripped down shows, is that the future? And like now seeing what Harry's doing, where his production isn't really up there either, like are artists trying to go more simple now? Is that what we're going to start seeing, like more stripped down, more interpersonal, which I can see a lot of people doing, where it's like, oh yeah, like now we can really maybe up the prices here, because this is going to be a very unique experience where it's not a lot of tickets. It's a very stripped down show and not a lot of people can go to it. But now people will feel like I paid a lot of money, but I felt very personal. Back in the day, you couldn't have phones, right? So it's like a lot of these
Yeah.
concerts were worthwhile because no one knew what was happening in these concerts, right? So it's like, I want
Yeah.
to go see. But now
It
everybody
really
knows
was a
what's
unique
happening.
experience. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I will say that some of my most favorite concerts were in smaller venues and more intimate settings and such. And
Hmm.
I do enjoy that type of concert a little bit more than like these bigger production ones. Although I have been to some really heavily produced concerts and they were so much fun. Like I loved Renaissance. And especially
Yeah.
when you have an artist like Beyonce that is so like dedicated to her craft and to making sure that there's always like a thought and an intention behind everything and every part of the show, whether it's the dancers, whether it's the costumes, everything, right? I will say that in some of the more recent concerts that I went to before Coachella, like Hilary Duff, for example, was at the Wiltern. Production was definitely more on the lower budget, but it makes sense because this was kind of I'm doing this pop-up concert and let me see how it goes. And I'm actually
Hmm.
curious to see what her tour ends up being and how much more produced or if it's similar to the vibe that she had at the Wiltern.
Hmm.
And it was real, and it was like stripped down in the sense that it wasn't giving too much production, but it had its little vibe. And she obviously, her stage persona was able to carry the show, and she had a great voice, and everybody was high off of the nostalgia of being there in that moment with
Hmm.
her. And before that, I think, what else did I see recently that was also giving a little bit of more stripped down? I saw J Balvin last year at the Kia Forum, and I remember going to the concert, and I had like so much fun because of all the like the bangers and stuff and the music, but it was also less produced in the sense that it wasn't necessarily giving low budget, but the production wasn't all that in a bag of chips and all crazy things. And he did have like some elements, had some dancers, but it was really about him and the singing
Yeah.
and the vibe, right? But he was the vibe, and he was able to carry the concert, and I didn't feel gypped in any way from the experience. So I
Right.
do think it's interesting to see if there is going to be this shift of people stripping down their performances, what that's going to mean in terms of ticket sale prices and also even venues, right? Like instead of doing
Mhm.
these huge stadium tours, maybe taking it back to arenas and smaller
Yeah.
venues.
Yeah, because I mean, even back then, maybe the issue is that artists nowadays are too dependent on production. You know what I mean? To make up for the fact that maybe they don't have the aura or the stage presence to
Presence, yeah.
really hold the audience attention. Now that Michael Jackson is kind of back into entertainment world right now and it's all the talks, you see these old performances of Michael Jackson. And I would say, yeah, they were high performance, but I wouldn't say they were high performance to the point where it's like you need all of these AI stuff in the background happening. His
Oh,
production was very much more music and dance based and, a couple lighting stuff. Like it was very aesthetically, putting the tape on his finger so that people can see how he dances, right? And he didn't need all of these dancers around him. So him being, I think there's a video where he's on by himself on stage, and the stage presence that man had is wild. And I think that maybe this is just a sign that maybe the music industry needs to strip down their production and focus more again on building up the artist and their stage presence and making sure, and not more so, I guess, depending on their fandom, because even fandoms are like a whole thing nowadays too, right? Like obviously they've always been a thing, but I think now with social media and everything, they've definitely taken up the notch as to what it means to be a stan, right? I think Nicki Minaj is like a really good example of that, because you could be a very controversial person, but if you have somewhat toxic enough standum, it doesn't
yeah.
really matter what you're doing, because those people will always be behind you. I think the Swifties are another really good example of that, because who knows where some of these artists would be without the
The
craziness
blind
of their fans,
followers.
right? Like, yeah, exactly. And no shade to them, but I would say they are one of those few artists that have like a pretty intense fandom. Like, you say something about them, they're there. I think
You
with the
better watch
Beehive is
yourself.
also one of those, but they're not as like crazy as like the Swifties and the Barbs. Um, but yeah, I think it's definitely interesting where the music industry is going, especially with the music. I think I had seen something about bridges are no longer existing and the songs are getting shorter every single time,
It's the
which
whole
is true.
attention span thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're just
Which
looking to
is,
like
it
hit
sucks
the
because,
algorithm, right?
yeah, and to kind of, it's being reduced to just like these bite-sized snippets
Hmm.
of the music, right? And it just sucks because I love a good 5-6 minute banger. I love that. And it's something that like has depth and lyricism and such. One of the other criticisms I saw from Jake's new album, where people were just like, where are the bars? And I was like, okay, you guys, like, they can't all be winners. Like, it's 3 albums. How many songs is it all together? There's gonna be some that you can skip, that they're not all gonna be winners, but some of the songs that I did listen to were pretty, that I did enjoy.
Yeah,
But
there
I'm
was
also
some bars
not,
in there,
what is it called, like
like a lyricist like that, where
that,
like,
or like a hip hop head or any of
yeah.
that of the sort. So like, I don't even feel like I have the qualifications to even speak on that. But speaking about new albums, tours, etc., and then legacy people, I'm curious to see what the Chris Brown and Usher
Mm,
tour is going to be like, because again, they're legacy artists, right? Have large discographies. Chris Brown just released a new album. I'm not sure if you've heard any of it.
I have not.
I've heard a
I've
couple
heard the
songs.
one single he released. I did see the
Yeah,
music video.
I heard,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that, and then I was like, oh, it's giving Sinners. And we listened to the album too. It was pretty good, like pretty decent. It definitely reminded me more of like old school R&B kind of vibe. But obviously
Mhm.
still had a little bit of newer flair, but it was good. But yeah, I'm curious to see what their tour is going to be like in terms of production and what they're going to give the public, considering how expensive the prices for those tickets were.
Yeah. And see, I think when it comes to Usher and Chris Brown, I can see the prices there being what they are because they are legacy artists and you also know what you're going to get with them. And they are high entertainers. They will put on a show. And I'm like, we've seen Chris Brown. We saw him at Lovers and Friends and I'm
We also saw
that
Usher, so
man, yeah.
yeah.
Those
And so
both of them get down.
yeah.
I'm like,
And I even
"Mm."
remember Chris Brown's recent tour, because he toured very recent. I want to say within the past maybe 2 years, I want to
Was
say.
it the Breezy Bowl tour?
I
Is
want
that
to,
what it is called? I forgot
I
what it was
don't,
called.
I don't remember, but I remember it was the one where like he went kind of viral for the poses he was doing with his meet and greets. But
No, but he's always been known for that though.
no,
Like that's
no, I
always
know.
been a thing.
Yeah, it's like nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just saying that time frame is where I'm putting it. I'm like, oh, that's when it happened. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that I remember when that tour was happening, and I had a couple of friends or people that I knew that went to it and posted their concert experience. And for them, it was a nostalgia thing because they're like obsessed with him when we were in high school and growing up. And so
Mhm.
for them to be able to live that, and the concert looked like so much fun. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I'm glad that they like got a really good experience out of it. I felt fortunate that I was like, oh, I'm glad I got to see him when I saw him, and Usher too. So to the point where I didn't feel like, oh my God, I need to go to this tour, even though I know it's going to be pretty great because it's going to be two of the greats, right? I think it's going to be good in terms of production, but it'll be interesting to see what it gives considering how expensive they were.
I think I mean, who Ariana Grande's back to touring, and see that's one of the ones too where I was like, I would love to see Ariana Grande because I'm like, who knows when this
Same.
girl's gonna go back to tour, and everything that happened with her tickets, and now that she's releasing an album while she's touring and people are like what the hell. I think that was one of the other call outs that a lot of people made. It's like people releasing albums and then releasing the tour dates and expecting people to buy tickets when they haven't heard the album. And it's like y'all need
Mm-hmm.
to stop doing that because again, as someone who bases her experience or her decision on whether or not she'll go see a tour if the album is great, I wouldn't feel comfortable going to a concert if that's going to be strictly based off of an album if I haven't heard it. I guess I could trust if the artist is great that it's going to be a good show. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
they kind of rely on the nostalgia aspect of it. But I
Yeah.
do see why people are like, that's not good. You guys should go back to your normal rollouts, go on those interviews, get up and work, roll out your album, fucking go promote it like Cardi B, and then go on tour, you
Oh
know?
yeah, I love. Yeah, it was really refreshing to see her album roll out and just what she did to get press
Yes.
for the album. You know, like you said, she did get up and work. Before kind of move forward with that, I did want to go back to Ariana for a second. I was curious if she did that approach just because she thought she was big enough to the point where like I will put it out, I will put out the tour, I will put out the album, and the people will come because I'm Ariana, and like her fandom would be able to carry her through that, right?
Well, I think for Ariana, it's a sticky situation because this tour is technically her touring. What's the album that we
The
were
Eternal
listening to?
Sunshine,
Eternal
or no?
Sunshine. That this is that tour. However,
Mm-hmm.
now she's dropping another album and people were like, "So how are you going to do so you're going to be touring and then promoting a new album, and then how are you going to incorporate that into are you going to incorporate that into your tour?" And then that's where maybe people feel gypped because they're like, great, we have early tour dates are before the album drops, so if she starts incorporating into the tour, then it's like, what the fuck. But I think Taylor Swift did something similar where she dropped the whole Poets one, and then she included that album in her later tour dates, and then I think she had to go back to some of the locations and tour it again, which obviously
Yeah.
people bought. But yeah, that's interesting, but it is complicated. And it's just like, yeah, I can see why people would feel gypped. But
What I'm curious about is I thought this one tour that she's on right now was going to be allegedly or rumored to be her last tour, but then she dropped a new album. So I'm like, oh, then she's going to tour again, or
I don't
she's
think
not
she's going
fully
to tour
retiring.
again. No,
Oh, okay.
from what I've heard is that Ariana has said that her last album that she makes will be a self-titled album.
Hmm.
So once she drops a self-titled album,
It's
that's how you
over.
know she's going to retire. Because I think someone had said that her first album, what was it called?
The blue one,
Yours
right?
truly.
Yours. It was the blue one, right? The one with her
The
little
blue
white
one.
heels.
Yes. Yours truly. Yeah. Okay. So yours truly. And then if it ends with a self titled, then it'd be yours truly, Ariana. And I'm like, oh, that's actually
That's
a really
cute.
cool narrative and a very like cheeky way for
Mm-hmm.
an artist to be like, this is my entire vault of music and this is my legacy basically. So I'm like, that's cool.
I was just gonna say that as a concert goer, as a viewer, I wouldn't mind her incorporating some new songs from her new album while
Mm-hmm.
she's on tour. And by some, I mean like one, two, maybe three tops. But if she's gonna be putting more of that into it, then I would feel like some type of way because I've been to concerts where artists have just released a new album and the tour isn't necessarily about the album, but because new music is released, they will sort of sprinkle one or two songs kind of to get people exposed to the new music and maybe get them to go and listen to the album, which I don't think
Yeah.
is that bad. Like I remember when I went to Lana's Paradise tour, it was the first time I listened to Ultraviolence and I was just like, you know,
Yeah.
but she didn't necessarily overtake the concert with Ultraviolence music, but I mean, I wouldn't have been pissed because it's a good album at the end of the day. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what her set list looks like for this new tour. I would like to see her in concert, and I would like to see her in an Eras tour, like
Yeah, but who
Era
knows
style.
if this concert would technically be like that because I think she's going to incorporate some of her positions music
Mm,
because she didn't tour positions. And I know a lot of
that's
people, I mean,
true.
I love that album Positions. I'm surprised people didn't like it when it came out, but now people love it. And it's like, and this is why sometimes your fans aren't always right. Yeah. And like, I think that's one of the things too. It's like, yes, there's people who are fans of you, but they're not, you can't always listen to what people want because it's always going to be like an immediate satisfaction thing and you can't satisfy everyone. So it's like
Yeah,
stick to your vision, stick to whatever
your
artistry you're
instincts.
trying to put out, and you'll see people eventually will catch on.
If the music is good, people will follow.
Yes. Yes. But again, and it's so interesting how people react to artists because then they're like, oh, they're not promoting their album. But then you have people like Cardi B, going back to that is like, technically doing a traditional rollout, right? promoting the shit out of her album, and
She
they're
was
like,
out in
"Oh,
the
she's
streets
doing too
selling her
much. She's
albums.
doing too much. She's desperate." And it's like, no, this is how shit used to go down. Like, you want people
People
to buy your
just,
album.
I hate how people hate on people for trying and for
Hmm.
doing stuff when it's just like, why would
For
you
being
hate on some?
passionate about something. And it's like, why is
Yeah,
it
like
so
that's what I'm saying.
icky
Like
to
for
you?
them trying, it's like stop projecting. Like you're just mad because you don't have the balls to do something like that. You don't have the balls to be passionate about something because you're too afraid of what people are going to
Being
think of
judged
you.
or exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so annoying because it's just like this isn't even about you. This is about the music, her music.
Yeah. But
It's her
yeah, I
baby.
mean, it's interesting to see where music will go. My theory is that we are going to see a lot more stripped down shows, a lot of smaller shows, and more, I would say, like hard to get, definitely. I mean, shit's already hard to get, but like,
That's the only
now they're
part that
gonna,
sucks, I feel. Because
yeah,
I hate when music is not accessible to people. And even like we've talked about how concert going has become such a luxury experience and all that goes into you're spending for the ticket, you're spending for gas, you're spending for the drive there, whether you're Ubering or whether you're paying for parking, the outfit, like it's a whole production literally.
yeah,
And that's where it becomes less accessible to people. And just thinking of things being reduced down to smaller venues, as much as I like smaller venues, I would hate for it to then still become a thing of like thousands of dollars to see these people, and then
mhm,
it's like who's actually going to these concerts, right? Like that's how I feel about the World Cup and how expensive these freaking tickets are.
yeah. But I could see it being on the positive end because then it's like, okay, if they are going to do smaller venues, but now you can invest, these smaller venues are not going to get their cut, right? So now you can really, they can invest in their infrastructure and like revive some of these old venues that used to be used for that purpose. And now because people are more aiming for arena and stadium tours, they're no longer used, right? So it's like, okay, what are the smaller venues now that people are going to be looking for, right? And one of the things I think, going back to Drake, is that allegedly he dropped the 3 albums because he was trying to get out, or he's out of his contract, like he fulfilled his contract. And so now he's being offered, I forgot the amount, but he's being offered a lot of money to be backed, but still be an independent artist. But he's going to be backed financially, which a lot of
Yeah.
people are like eyeing because they're like, it's a big artist being independent. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like you're going up against record labels, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
does this mean for the music industry where now bigger artists are going to be independent? Now you have independent artists, but it's usually not the big ones, right? You have like Tinashe, like, artists that are in the atmosphere and they're
Mm-hmm.
big, but they're not like huge. So what does this mean? And if you start getting those stripped back shows where these big artists, are independent, can kind of have a little bit more control with
The
their artistry and the
creativity. Yeah.
creativity, then maybe we are in a good place, a renaissance, you will say, of art, of better music, hopefully, especially if these record labels are not out here just stifling people's creative visions for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a little bit more control. It's like, okay, well, maybe I will pay a little bit if
This
the music's a little better.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, that is a good point. It'll be interesting to see what does that mean for him and his artistry and his career and any future material that he puts out, but also the impact that it's going to have in the industry in the sense of are we going to start seeing the flow of these larger artists also going independent and what
And
that
now
does to
smaller
their
artists also being backed too, and how their music will be impacted, like for the newer artists that are upcoming and don't need
Mhm.
to depend on a record label, which we've already seen because a lot of these people have made music on social media and that's how they get discovered, and they
Mhm.
have released EPs and all this stuff on their own
Yeah.
and back up their own music, and then eventually they get signed, right? Versus
Yeah.
back then it's like you got signed and you get to do all the fun stuff, but now it's very much the other way. So there's a lot of chess pieces happening here, and it's a very interesting time on all ends. And yeah, so we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on Drake and
Yeah,
all
right?
of all of these artists on Harry's tour, and see
Yeah.
what happens. Hopefully people will start dancing on the dance floor for Harry, and maybe he can up his production just a little bit so that it's more club and dancing club, and
So it's giving
he
more
captures
disco
his
ball.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's also still the very beginning of his tour, right? So there might be still some opportunity for them to refine some of the the issues, right? I think with
Yeah.
every tour that always happens at the beginning, it might be a little rocky and then they like lock in and get it together, but
And
time
also,
will tell.
people just want to shit on people. I remember people were shitting on Katy Perry's concert, and then a lot of people were like, it's actually really fun. And I was like, yeah, it looked a lot of fun. I mean, people like to shit on Katy Perry, but like we've been to her residency, and I'm like,
Yeah, that
she's
was
a
a lot of
very
fun.
creative person, and production wise, she's also very creative, and she has a great plot line to her production. When people were like, oh yeah, it sucks, it's I'm like, I'm sure y'all
Some
missing
of you are
something.
not creatives and it shows. Some of you guys think small and it shows. Some of you need to think
You need to
big.
think big.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode. Let us know your thoughts. How did you
Yeah.
guys feel about Drake dropping 3 albums? Have you guys listened to it? Are you guys Drizzy fans? Are you guys Team Drizzy? Or are you guys team haters? No, I was kidding. And again, reminder that next week we will not be having an episode next week. So you guys get to have a break from us for a week.
Yeah. Or catch up
But
on anything you
yeah,
haven't
or yeah,
listened to.
catch up on our episodes, guys. I'm sure there's one episode that you guys haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week or whatever you have going on. And as always, remember to bitch up and be you.